Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Glagoric and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I have with me the co-founders, the CEO and COO of Leafy Legal Services, Brian and Jennifer. They have an amazing show once again, so I will go ahead and hand it over to them so we can get started.
And today we have a very interesting guest. Our next guest grew up in a very small Southern California town to a family, even her grandparents, of entrepreneurs. So she couldn't get out of it. She worked in the family business, and then she later went on to specialize in global logistics, retail operations, and distribution. But that wasn't her passion. Her passion, like ours, was real estate investors and finance. And now she helps investors, long-term residents, and locally owned and operated vendors all win. It's a win-win-win-win situation. She loves talking about it. And so we really want to welcome today Anne Amagrande. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Anna.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
Actually Anne, but that's not
Anne. Oh my God.
It's you know what? It's the funniest thing. I get that so often. It's crazy. I'll introduce myself as Anna, and 5 seconds later, it's, hey, Anna. Okay, sure. We'll go with Anna.
I'm sorry. You know what? I think it just, it's like, yes, you're right. Anne Amagrande. Okay, so Anne.
No, you're good.
Amagrande.
Yeah.
It's Anne.
It's all the A's.
Yeah.
Yes. So and her website
Excellent.
is amagrande.com. So.
That's correct.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much.
I almost said it again. But why don't you give us a little bit of your background? It sounds like you had an interesting background, how you kind of got eventually into what you're doing right now. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that, we've got actually a very interesting story. So I started working when I was 5 for my grandparents. I mean, they've passed on now, so, they're not going to get in trouble with the labor board anymore. So, so we started working, we would sweep they had a printing company. And so we would start out by sweeping the floors. And then we slowly moved up into, putting together pads of paper or things of that nature. And it was really a great experience growing up there because it allowed us to really understand, income coming in and, expenses going out. So it really gave us a great foundation when we were very young. And my parents also own their own business. So by the time we were 13 in the summers, we would actually go and work for the family business. And that's where we got a lot of our work ethic. So my sisters and I all have a tremendous work ethic. So that's really where we started. When we were in our early teens, my grandmother was actually a real estate agent in Orange County. And so we would actually, on the weekends, we would go and clean out the REOs. And so it's kind of funny that, now we come full circle and now I'm in real estate. So it wasn't necessarily something I was interested in at that time, but it's actually very interesting, the path that we take and how we look back and say, oh man, this was a great experience. And this really taught me about real estate at a very young age. So it was definitely a really good learning experience growing up that way.
It really is funny how our backgrounds shape us. And they end up either sometimes it's to push us away, like I never want to do that. With me, my mother owned the largest staffing agency in our area. She was the single mom of 5 kids. And that was in an age where women did not get divorced. My mother was an older mother, and all my brothers and sisters were married by the time I was born. So I was kind of like at the tail end of that. But I grew up working with her, and I would be the one that set the timer and did the spelling test, and I would check it. I did little things like that in the office, but instilling in me, the beauty of being able to provide work for people, to be an entrepreneur yourself, and just putting people to work, how it changed people's lives being able to work. That's how I started out on it, and now I'm an entrepreneur. And also, too, she did other things, that were important, as far as with, her, she always thought about the planet. She was always very, open like that. And, those things that affect me now. So I understand that.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't change my background at all. I mean, I've had parts of my life where I've failed miserably. I've had parts of my life that were just exceptional. But you're absolutely right. I think that I wouldn't change anything because I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be today because of where I came from. And I wouldn't change that for anything.
Yeah, that's so true. Is once you can embrace your background, it's great. Because I personally come from a fourth generation business owners as well. My family business has been in business since 1938. So It's been through the generations, though I'm not continuing it on, but it was in an area I wasn't interested in. But it's interesting how that does shape you and how you grow up, and it's just a part of who you are.
I completely agree.
And now your niche primarily is single family. So that's really interesting for us. For some reason, we've had a lot of multifamily and people that have come on just lately. But single family is really where most of us investors start out with. We either want to buy and hold or we want to flip. And so I just love that you're a guest on the show right now, because we need to go back to, what's that passion for everyone. So, but you're still in single family. You still love it. So tell me a little bit about your why for single family.
I think there's a lot of whys, to be honest. And I think that single family versus multifamily, they all have their individual and unique challenges. I think that it's much easier for us to go out and say, okay, well, we're going to buy a multifamily. We're going to get 200 doors right off the bat. We're going to raise, $1 to $5 million to go out and get these buildings. And now you can say, okay, cool. Now I have 200 doors in my portfolio. And in single family, it's a lot more challenging because every single building is one door. And we have a lot of unique challenges, but also we're able to diversify a lot more of our portfolio because we can sell off an individual asset, which is only one door. Whereas if you are in a multifamily, if you buy an entire 200 unit complex, you have to sell off the entire asset to get a return of capital, right? So this allows us to mitigate a lot of our risk because we're able to diversify not only within different areas, but also in different asset classes. All right. Well, not necessarily asset classes, but also within the different price ranges. And so this allows for us to buy in volatile markets like Phoenix and a lot of other places where we see a huge volatility in the markets. But we also have an ability to say, okay, well, let's blend that with some cash flow markets back in the Midwest. Right. And so this allows us to kind of mitigate a lot of the fluctuations in the entire economy.
Yeah, that's interesting. When it comes to, investing in a single home, how are you going through the process of are you looking for cash flow at certain points? Are you looking for investment or how are you going through your process of investing in another home as you grow your portfolio?
That's a great question. That's actually something we get a lot. Like, how do you identify those properties? So we actually have a very grassroots way of marketing, but what we're also doing is we are looking for very specific metrics. So my background is in economics, and so what we do is we take a lot of those economic principles and say, okay, well, we're going to look at homes as widgets, right? We don't get emotionally involved. This is not an emotional purchase. This is not my personal residence. So what we're looking at is, okay, great. We're going to go in and we're going to say, these are our metrics that we need to hit. Number one, we always hit blue class or blue collar homes because we feel that they're a lot more economy resistant, right? So they're a little bit more recession proof because you're always going to need people in those blue collar jobs versus the white collar. So your software engineers, those are most likely the individuals that are going to be laid off during a recession, not necessarily your garbage man.
Got it.
Right. And so a lot of those blue collar positions are a little bit more recession proof. And so therefore we want to create a situation that we're going to be a little bit more stable and secure with our investments. And so this actually provides an opportunity for us to get into the property for a little bit lower costs, because if we're doing a traditional 80-20, we're only putting 20% down on, let's just say, $150,000 to a $200,000 home versus 20% down on $1 million home in California. And so this allows for us to diversify a little bit more across the board. And what we also, go ahead, please.
No, okay. So I was going to ask you. So being an economist, you also have to be a little bit of a futurist.
Correct.
So how are you looking at it, or even are you even looking at it now in terms of automations? Because, I know that in that sector, there are a lot of people that are worried that they will finally be on the, even though they're skilled labor, and we have a crisis in skilled labor shortages right now.
Absolutely.
That automation is going to come. But then you have, issues like they just ran the first truck of butter from, I think where it was someplace in Canada, like down the line to a place in California. It was completely autonomous driving. So of course, the Teamsters Union, they're freaking out. They're like, there is no way you can automate that because you never know what people are going to do.
That's
and
correct.
It was such a controlled test that they're like, we're not even close to doing that yet. But still, that worry's there. So have you put that into your forecast of what you're thinking for your rentals, or is that too far away?
That's a little bit farther out than what we're looking at. So we're only looking at typically a 3 to 5 or 7 year type of economic structures. And I don't know if you know this, but here in Phoenix, we actually have a plant that is being built in the south of Phoenix to build automated trucks.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. And so we here in Phoenix itself, we actually have a huge growth of jobs. There's an influx of businesses that are coming in, that are coming in, saying, we're bringing in 2,000 jobs for this one company. We've got 3,000 jobs coming in for another company. We have seen such an explosion of growth within just the Arizona community. It's unprecedented. So I believe that we're actually fourth in the country for an influx.
Yeah, no, you're not the only investor. A lot of people are talking about Phoenix right now as being a really hot market. Do you feel like for the people that are in these industries now that they will just transition with training, that like either the government or there'll be programs to transition that driver into a mechanic, to where they can stay the same wage, or how do you see that rolling out? Are these all new types of jobs?
Well, I think that, we kind of have to look back in history. So at one point we had switchboard operators.
Right.
And with the development of cell phones and the development of different technologies, all of those workers were displaced. Mm-hmm. And what did they do? They went out and got different education, got a different job. Right. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be no different. So it's not as though we're going to instantaneously within a 1 month, 3 month, or even a year period, we're going to have 100% of displaced labor because of automation, right? So we've already seen automation. We've got Amazon that will deliver something in hours, right? We have a lot of technological advances that are happening, and now it used to be every 3 years we would see the new computers come out. Now it's every 3 to 6 months. Yeah. We have a new computer that's the technology is rapidly changing, but we're also as a society and as individuals, we are able to keep up with that. Mm-hmm. And so this isn't necessarily, it's just going to be changing the way that we operate, right? So we used to ride horses for transportation. And then once we had the automobile, those horses went away. And so we stopped using horses. So there was a decline in, horse breeding and things like that, which obviously affected that industry. So it's just as we move on, as technology advances, we're just going to change our skill sets.
And so the great thing about real estate is that is always going to be happening. And you're always going to need people that need rentals, because it doesn't matter where you are. Everybody's got to have a place to live. So it all ties back to that. That's right.
And that's one of the reasons that we focus on single family. We focus on residential housing versus doing commercial. Mm-hmm. Right? Because as we see these recessionary periods, we see once the recession starts to hit, what's the first thing that goes down? Businesses. They say, okay, well, we can't afford to keep this rental space for our business. We're going to move back into our garage. We're going to move back into our home, mm-hmm. right? And so then those are the first that typically start to decline. Is that commercial and that retail space? Yeah. And then we start to see other areas. But you're always going to make sure that your family has a home. You're always going to make sure that they have the necessities, right? Clothing, food, water, and housing. Yeah. And that's why we focus on residential housing, is because we find it so much more secure than a lot of the retail spaces.
That's very cool. So as you grow your portfolio, are you guys doing it all internally, or are you bringing on investors, or how are you guys doing that?
We actually we started out doing it internally and just buying our own rental properties. And I'm going to be 35 in a couple of months. So it only allowed us to go so far, because in your early 30s and your late 20s, you only have so much capital that you can place, right? Yeah. The banks are only willing to give you so many loans. And so then we started to bring on investors, and that's how we've been expanding a lot of our portfolios by bringing on partners within a joint venture type of a structure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what does someone need to do to invest with you? What's the what are you kind of looking for with them, and what do they want to look for in you and your kind of uniqueness?
Well, what we're actually looking for, we're always looking for individuals that are focused on safety and security, right? You can take risk in other areas, but when you work with us, we're going to focus on making sure that you have stability and security with whatever you place with us, right? So there are some people that are investing in the stock market. There are some people that are investing in futures, but real estate is something that you can go and kick the tires on that isn't necessarily going to go away, right? And if it goes away, we've got insurance for that, and then we just rebuild. Yeah. And so there's not a lot of protection from that perspective in a lot of other assets or asset classes that you can invest in. So real estate is one of the only things that you can get insurance against, where if it burns to the ground, we all throw a party because we're building a new house. Right. And so I mean, it's a reality. And so this actually allows for a lot more stability for our investors as well. What we're also looking for is a long-term relationship. So we are not doing flip. We're not trying to do wholesaling. We are actually, taking Warren Buffett's advice, and we're buying and holding for the long term. Okay. And so we want to make sure that we can create some stability and some long-term wealth generation, long-term growth for our investors. Okay, cool.
And why would that? Oh, go ahead. Oh,
it's how long do you guys usually hold your houses? Are you holding them, for multiple decades? Or are you thinking of like the 5 to 7 years, or it just depends on the market and where it's going?
It depends on a couple of different factors. So number one is definitely going to be the economy, right? Where are we in that cycle? So every 8 to 12 years, we go through the full cycle. Oh, and if we're in the bottom of the cycle, well, we could probably hold it for about 3 to 5 years and see some growth if we bought it at the bottom, right? But if we're buying it closer to the top, we need to wait until the next top, which could be somewhere between 7 and 12 years. Okay. Right, before we start to see that full cycle come back again. And so that's the first one. The second one is going to be, what is our investor looking for? So again, I'm going to be 35. I have investors ranging from 32 all the way out to 87. Wow. And so every single one of them is going to have a different need. So the individuals I'm working with that are in their 30s, well, you're not necessarily looking for cash flow today. What you're looking for is growth. You're looking for a way for your portfolio to continue to grow so you can get to retirement faster. If you're in your 70s or 80s, you're already past retirement, you're looking for something to sustain while you're actually in retirement now. And so it just depends on what it is that our individual investor is looking for. The third is, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. So we had the economy, we had the investor. Also the last thing is our residents. So we actually have a very unique program. So we actually do lease option instead of doing straight rental. And so what we do is we actually allow for our residents to have the option of purchasing their home. So that would be what
percentage of renters do you have doing that? Is that a fairly large percent of renters do that, or is it?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So we offer it in every state that we're allowed. So there are states like Texas where you cannot do lease option. You can do term loans, but you can't do the lease option type of.
That's interesting, because a lot of places don't do that anymore. It's almost like it's kind of a past thing that people used to do, but now it's harder to find. So it's interesting that you are kind of bringing that trend back. That was something that hasn't been used for quite some time. That's pretty interesting.
Why do you feel there's a pushback against lease option when, owning is so much better? And it usually owning is better for a community as well. And owning is better for a neighborhood. You want people who are going, man, I'm not going to throw that party, or, not that it's really that, but, there is a perception. If you own a house and you're in a neighborhood, I know I'm in a very old established neighborhood here in Galveston, and between Airbnb and Vrbo and the rentals, you think that they would up the neighborhood because you have lock boxes and you have these cute little pictures, and they have to keep it clean, but really it kind of degrades the sense of the neighborhood because you have an increase of predatory people who are always looking at that neighborhood, like, oh, this is a good place to target or whatever. And now you're getting this foot traffic or bicycle traffic. We have a lot of people on bikes and feet here, which you don't get in a lot of other places in Texas because everybody's in cars, but it does increase it. So now you have to get a neighborhood watch and stuff like that. So how is, I don't understand why lease options aren't like the most, they would push that in a lot of states. Why do you think that is?
So are you asking why we do lease option instead of just
why do you
homes?
why do you think that they lease options are no longer offered in the states like Texas for that? Is there a reason for that you think, or?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge reason. So there's a couple of things. So in the past, there were a lot of people that were doing predatory type lease options, right? So they tell you, okay, well, you're going to give me 10% down on the home and you have to buy it within 2 years. I don't know about you, but yeah. And this was what the standard was, which is, they you give a down payment and then you have to purchase the home within 2 years. Well, the reason that you're doing a lease option is probably because A, you don't have the down payment, or B, you don't have the credit in order to qualify for a loan. And I don't know about you, but I don't know a lot of people that can get their credit fixed within 2 years or even within a year and and be able to execute on that. So what
not when you had to get a loan for $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. Well, wherever you're getting the $10,000, you might have the $10,000. I mean, but we're not talking about $100,000 homes. We're talking about $150,000, possibly $200,000 homes.
Yeah.
So everybody, it goes back to the predatory loans that were being done before the last recession, right? So we see a lot of people that were giving out these loans that people shouldn't have even been able to qualify for. I mean, we have the bus driver that was in DC that was making $15 an hour that bought an $800,000 home because it was stated income. I mean, these were real things that happened. So a lot of the lending restrictions were constricted.
Mm-hmm.
That was number one. But we also saw that there were, what was it? Then Dodd-Frank was enacted. So with the enacting of Dodd-Frank, we actually saw a lot of the restrictions and a lot of things that construed a contract as a sale. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people stopped doing the lease options because they couldn't get through the regulation. They couldn't figure out how to create a lease option. Mm-hmm. And so what we now do is we actually have gone through and we have a network of individuals across the country that do lease option.
Oh, wow.
And so we've connected with all of them. We've hired attorneys, and we were able to figure out how to do this correctly so that we have a lease and then we have an option, and they're completely separate documents. Mm-hmm. But what we're able to do, and this goes back to what you talked about before, which is, degrading the community.
Yeah.
So by doing these lease options, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, you're eventually going to own this home. I'm not going to do a two-year option. What we're going to do is somewhere between a 5 and a 15-year option. And you have between 5 and 15 years, you're still paying rent every single month. But anywhere within that time frame, whatever we determine, again, this goes back to where is our investor at, right? Are they looking within 10 years? Are they looking to retire? Well, great. We want to probably get those sold so that we can create more cash flow for them in that 10-year period. And so we create a very, very specified structure for each investor. Mm-hmm. But what this does is it allows for, let's just say that we put somebody in under 7-year option. They have any time between year 2, they're at the end of year 2 because we want to get past the short-term capital gains. So anytime after year 2 through year 7, so it gives them an entire 5 years to execute. They make the decision. They let us know when they want to execute. So this
that's so great.
And so what this does is that we also allow them to go in and they can do updating on the home. So if your dream kitchen is canary yellow, I mean, that's not my color, but your dream color is canary yellow for your kitchen and you want to paint it canary yellow, you are more than welcome to do so.
Yeah.
Because you are creating your home. Mm. And so this creates a psychology of home ownership rather than tenants. So tenants call about leaky faucets. Homeowners, what do? They fix their leaky faucet.
And then they invest in upgrading, or they think about other different things. They just don't sit there and let it rot around them in general, unless everything's coming down. But even then, they're more apt to try to fix it or patch it or do something. Whereas
Correct.
You know,
and they take a lot more ownership to the pride.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just a psychology. So we look for a psychology. I'm not looking for somebody to fill my house and pay me rent. I'm looking for the psychology of individuals that want to be homeowners. And they may just have like a credit situation. We've had individuals in the past that say, hey, you know, my husband lost his job and, you know, we had this medical thing and it ended up bankrupting us because our healthcare system is horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore they had to go into bankruptcy because they couldn't afford the $150,000 procedure that needed to be done because he had lost his insurance.
Yeah.
And so these are the type of things we're not just looking at it. You're not just a number. We look at the entire situation. How long have you been with your job? 15 years. That's fantastic. That means that you have dedication. That means that you don't just go job hopping every 6 months to a year. Right. Yeah. So these are the things that we look at. Right. Do you have kids? Are you going to let your kids sleep in your house if you can no longer afford your rent? That's an absolute no. You're going to let the TV go. You're going to let the car go, but you're going to give your kids a roof over their head every night.
Yeah.
And so we look for a very specific type of psychology.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, why would someone work with you over another? And I'm thinking, well, this is why, because there's a heart-centered innovation that you're doing to think outside the box and think, how can I be of good, of service, that this is a good thing that we're doing, that I wake up every morning and I go, this is really good. This is good for me. This is good for the tenants. This is really good for everyone. And then everybody can feel great. So exactly. If an investor wants to approach you for something, what are you looking at as for limits? And can an investor say, okay, this is what I want to invest in, but I need cash now or whatever? Do you have a process where they contact you and you interview them, or how does that work?
And that's honestly exactly what it is. Because this is a long-term relationship, we interview them just as much as they're interviewing us, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Because if you have a short-term time horizon and I've got a long-term time horizon, those aren't going to match up.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to make sure that it's a good fit and this is really where it goes back to that win-win-win scenario. It has to be a win for our investors. It has to be a win for our resident, and it has to be a win for us. And if all three of those things are not going to happen, then it probably isn't going to work. And I can probably suggest somebody else that might be able to help you with flips or wholesaling or whatever the case is. Those are just not things that we like to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we do that. That's exactly what we do is we just have a conversation. Where would you like to get to? And is it possible or how can we help you to get there? And if that's something that we can help you with, great, let's move forward. And if it isn't, that's also great. So this has to be a win for you though.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's a great thing your guys are doing, because, I've never seen this before. I think that it's a great thing that, not only are you helping people expand their portfolio, but you're actually giving them a home that they can call their own.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering, how did you get started with that? Because it's not something you see. So I'm curious in how this kind of all came about, because I'm sure there's got to be a story behind it.
There absolutely is. So when I was still in retail distribution, I was working with a good friend of mine from high school. We were flipping some homes, and I realized that it just wasn't, again, it wasn't creating that win-win-win, because I have to tell somebody, hey, your house isn't worth as much, and I've got to put all of this work in, so I'm going to give you the least amount I possibly can so that I can create that margin for ourselves, right? So then we go in and we fix it, and then I tell the next person or the person that we're selling it to, okay, this is the best house you're going to buy, and I try to move the price up as best that I can, right? And I could try to create as much of that value so that we can get a margin, we can get that spread. And it just wasn't really feeding me. Right, because then if there are any problems in the home that were not fixed, that we possibly overlooked, or that just didn't get fixed, now all of those problems are the next person's. Yeah. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create better situations, and I wanted to help people that in all aspects. Right, so I want to help the investor because obviously they're looking for a rate of return for their capital, but also I want to help the individuals that are eventually going to own this home. I want to help them and give them a good, solid foundation for them to grow from. Because a majority of the individuals that we are working with have never owned a home. A majority of their families in their entire history have never owned a home. They've always rented. So they have that tenant mentality. But we want to let them know that, it's what's the American dream? Everybody in every other country says the American dream is to live in America, make a lot of money, and own your own home.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And so we're trying to help people that live what we believe is the true American dream, which is home ownership.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, golly, guys, we're learning a lot of really great stuff, man, from Anne Amagrande. That's Anne, A-N-N-E, Amagrande. And you can reach her at amagrande.com. That's AMAGRANDE. She's on LinkedIn at Anne, A-N-N-E, Amagrande, which is just like I just said it. And then she's on Facebook, too, at Gamma, G-A-M-A, and Associates, G-A-M-A and Associates. And of course, as is always, Tammy puts all the links and all the information at the end of the show because she's absolutely incredible. And we're going to have to get to the end of our thing here soon. But do you have any takeaways for us, Anne, that we haven't already talked about?
For anybody that's looking to do any kind of real estate investing, it's all about knowledge and persistence. Right. And I think that those are the two things that really helped me to succeed with where I am today is that, you're going to go through rough patches and just know that that's 100% normal. Everybody, I mean, there are so many people in the world that, it's just this big social media frenzy where all we ever see is like the good things that are happening in everybody's life. Right. So just know that everybody struggles. Everybody struggles. But it's about getting through that struggle and just persevering through it. Just like with anything. When we all learned our multiplication tables, I'm sure that none of us got it right the first time.
Brian did.
Don't tell him that.
I want him. Is he free for, does he do any freelance for finances?
Well, it's been great to have you on here, Anne, and you've been amazing. And when it comes to, knowledge, it's definitely clear that you have a lot. So, I encourage everybody listening that has questions to contact Anne and her team. And, you can sign up for a Q&A session. And so if you just go to the website, which will be listed below. And so, Anne, we appreciate you being here. And Tammy, why don't you take us out?
Thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Brian and Jennifer, for being wonderful hosts again for our podcast. And Anne, it was an amazing show. I will have all of Anne's links, like they said, in our show notes. And if you would like to get a hold of her, I will also leave her contact information there. If you do have a question for her and you'd like me to go ahead and get in touch with her and get back to you, go ahead and email me at Tammy, T-A-M-M-Y, at Leafy Legal Services, and I will get right back to you. So thank you, everyone, again for listening in. And if you'd like to find us on social media, we are at Leafy Legal. We are all over the place, so you shouldn't have any trouble there. And we will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. And, well, that's about it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't wait. Take action now. leafylegalservices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.